What's up, everybody? Welcome in to a slightly vacation delayed, but finally, yes, finally, it is time to celebrate the Robert Williams extension here on the Celtics Talk podcast on the NBC Sports Boston podcast network. I've got Jeff Goodman along with me. I've also got a bottle of champagne I told you, Jeff, I'm not lying. It's mimosas this morning because I know the fans have been waiting for this. I've had a glow.
You've been waiting for this.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
The fans haven't been waiting. You've been waiting for this, Chris.
I will admit, and the funny part about it is, I think everyone knows how much I love Robert Williams and what I think he's capable of. And so the amount of tweets and texts and messages I got after he signed an extension was kind of comical. But it warmed my heart. Let's just start on the surface level. How excited were you that Robert Williams got a 4-year, $54 million extension, but only $48 million guaranteed?
I wasn't popping champagne like you were.
Well, not all of us can.
But I think it was the right move. You're torn, right? You're torn on the fact of again, not the most reliable dude on or off the court. We've known that. He's
whoa, I'll jump in right there. Fair to say he is unreliable on the court because of his injury history. All reports are he busts his ass behind the scenes.
Yeah, he's gotten better.
It's just been snake bitten. Yeah,
he's matured, and this is a kid that I remember the first time I ever saw him was at the Wooden Classic out as a freshman at Texas A&M, and I fell in love with him. I remember tweeting out, I think I just saw a lottery pick, and nobody knew who Robert Williams was then. Ooh. And then I sat down with him for a while. He was at like an Under Armour camp as a counselor that summer, and everybody thought he was going to go pro, and he came back to school, even though he would have been probably a late lottery pick after his freshman year. And I sat down with him for like an hour and fell in love with him as a kid. Because I do think, he's just a sweet, small town kid who is not going to know what to do with all this money. Like,
so true.
Absolutely not going to know what to do. He'll find ways to spend it. I'm sure. I hope he does, because I know I would. But 4 years, $54 million, 48 guaranteed. Listen, I think you got to do it because of his upside. And even, listen, Chris, even if, and I think he's had some bad luck, some bad injury luck, and you hope it doesn't continue. But ultimately, he fits in so well with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and whoever else they're going to decide to put around him. I have no idea who that's going to be in the future, but we know Marcus Smart could be here for a while. It's still a tradable contract, and we'll probably talk about that, but could be here for a while. But ultimately, Robert Williams, you know what he is? He's way more skilled than I gave him credit for. That's what he is. You knew he was a freak athlete, a shot blocker, a rim runner, like all of that. But what I didn't know was he's as good a passer as he is, his feel for the game. And I think he'll get better about being able to consistently make shots from the perimeter. Because like you said, all accounts are he's learned the work ethic part of it. He did not have that when he got to Boston. He didn't.
Yeah. And like, it is funny, like in hindsight, missing that flight and missing the conference call and forgetting his wallet and all that stuff that took place that sort of delivered him to this a little bit of a punchline was probably beneficial for him. Yeah. The report was as soon as he came back for year 2 and the Celtics moved to the Auerbach Center, he was living right next door. So he was able to be one of the first guys in. And I think he really embraced that. Right, exactly. And I think that was important for Rob. I think as much as, again, as the Time Lord thing was, the name spawned from like our media overreaction to these things, it probably did help Rob in some way to like sort of lock in as a professional and get ready to take that next jump. Now, I can't sit here and argue everybody's point. Like, look, there's risk involved. The guy's only played 109 games in his NBA career through 3 seasons. You need to see that more consistently. I was pleased that last year, I think he played like 72% of the games. If he wants to trigger a $500,000 incentive, he's got to play up to 84% of the games this regular season. And so he's got motivation to stay healthy. And that matters. We've seen guys. I mean, Jaylen Brown wanted to get to the finish line of this season because of the incentives it triggered. So there will be, I just think it's a sweetheart of a deal that when you look at just barely above mid-level money for a player who should contribute far more than your typical mid-level acquisition. I joked in the post extension glow, I said it was the steal of the summer. But now that I've seen the details of the contract, Jeff, I truly feel like it could be a bargain.
I do too. I mean, listen, how old is Robert Williams now?
24, probably.
Right. He's 24 years old. Again, in college, it came so quickly to him. And then obviously with the NBA draft, he fell because of some red flags, frankly. That's the only reason the Celtics were able to get him, is because he slipped due to red flags. And now I think having the right people around him, and I can't wait to see how this new coaching staff too deals with a kid like Robert Williams, because to me, that's kind of a game changer for him, right? Is having guys around him, Ime, Damon Stoudemire, guys that have kind of been in the NBA and lived that life. And, as you get older, listen, 24 years old, you get that money, you want to have some fun now. And that's going to be the key for Robert Williams, is like, how does he manage this? How does he handle all of this now that he's been paid and he's got all this money? Does he still continue to work like he has over the last year or so, trying to get that next one? Because that next one, let's face it,
could be a big
one. Could be a big boy one if he does what we think he could do, because his ceiling is so high. But again, like you said, there's risk involved here, because the other part of it is floor. His floor is lower than a lot of other guys because of the fact that we don't know if he's going to be out there as much as some other guys.
So you mentioned it, the pre-draft stuff and the artery condition, I think it was, that came up. There were some red flags. What I have been consistently told throughout the course of Time Lord's career, and again this summer, is that there was nothing about his medicals that should have given the Celtics pause about giving him a long-term deal. And I think the organization is hopeful that this is a snake bitten situation where he's had the hip, he's had the toe, he's had the ankle, like little things that, I mean, and look, I can't sit here and say that there is no risk involved, but I feel pretty confident that, as you said, with a new sort of group lingering over him, guys that have been in the league and can say, hey man, you got to be out there. You owe it to your teammates. And I think that will matter to Robert Williams. I think getting the experience, even with Tristan Thompson last year, like before his Celtics tenure, Tristan Thompson was an Iron Man. And you learn a little something about being around those guys and what it means to put in the work and the effort needed to be out there and how you have to condition your body. And so I think Rob, I'm confident he will get there. Is he going to have little freak injuries? When you play above the rim, when you play at 12 feet and you are contorting the way he does, I think you're just going to have to deal with some stuff, but hopefully it's more of the miss a game here and there and not what keeps him off the court. I thought to go back to what you said about Rob's personality, I don't know if there's someone I love talking to more. When he first got here, he couldn't stop cursing. And Austin Haynes literally had to interject in every interview and be like, man, you don't have to add F after like every sentence, even though I enjoyed how it elevated the quotes. And he's sort of grown into a fun guy, but he still shows up at the podium last year, asked if he can take the sponsored Gatorade bottle off it. Like, I just love his sort of disarming Southern charm that, the small town Louisiana boy who's like kind of still figuring out that he's an NBA superstar now, or NBA superstar in the making. So I'm very excited is the bottom line. What is his ceiling? Like, we talked about his floor, that obviously, the concern is he just stays injured and now that contract isn't great, but what is his ceiling if he reaches his potential?
I mean, different, but similar in some regards, like a Bam Adebayo type of player. Ooh. Like, he's a better shot blocker.
I need a minute, Jeff.
I know. Well, but that's the type of player you want him to be, right? Like, Bam doesn't block shots at the same rate that Robert Williams can and probably will. Robert Williams can't guard, ball screens and pick and rolls like Bam can. Neither are great scorers, but both are like adequate scorers, and they know what they are offensively. Like, that's the beauty of both of those guys is, Brad Stevens is giving the green light to everybody to shoot from three, right? Like, Robert Williams he didn't jack a ton. Now, again, he's young. He's still trying to figure out kind of where he fits.
If you can teach Aaron Baines to shoot threes, you can teach Robert Williams down the road, but I don't need that right now.
Daniel Tice. I mean, every big guy is out there jacking threes, and Rob wasn't. And I think he will eventually. Well, maybe he won't, because now he's got a new head coach who hopefully won't allow everybody to jack threes because that drove me friggin' crazy with Brad. And you know how much I love Brad. And I told Brad that like it drives me nuts when you have not non-shooters,
right?
But like guys that aren't really good shooters. Why? There's a reason you're open from three. So like, Rob, go get down in the paint.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're not going to run a whole hell of a lot for you because we don't need to.
You don't have
We'll
to
run the court harder than the other big and get some transition buckets that way. Play great defense, clean up everybody else's mistakes, and finish around the rim. Go get it off the glass. And occasionally, we'll keep you happy. We'll run a play for you, maybe one a quarter. And other than that, it's going to be Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and I don't know who else. Maybe Rob will get more touches because I don't know who the hell else is going to score on this team.
It's so funny you say that. We'll stash that for later. I do think you can keep Rob happy because the ball is going to be in his hands a lot, and he's going to run a lot of the offense, kind of that old school Al Horford design. I'll be interested to see what they do with that power forward spot. If you get a floor stretcher there, you don't need Rob necessarily to be at the on the perimeter as much, but there's options there. And I just go back to it that game one against the Nets when he's playing on 9 toes and has 9 blocks. Like it's just a little glimpse.
It was insane.
I mean,
that's when it changed my thought of him, to be honest. That game changed my whole approach of like, all right, you know what? This dude is a game changer. He's just got to be on the court and get more reps to get better in some of the other aspects of the game that he's not quite as dominant yet or up to speed with. But defensively, the things he can do, and there aren't many. There just aren't many in the league that can do what he does.
When he stopped the Harden drive and then blocked the step back, I like literally, if we had a camera on me in the NBC Sports Boston studios, you would have seen me hit the floor. There was resuscitation involved because I had fainted and I was daydreaming of what Robert Williams could do if that was like a consistent presence. But yeah,
does he know how much you actually really
I don't know. I you know what? I don't assume he goes home and watches Early Edition and BST and all this. So I'm guessing no. I think there are people in the Celtics organization that are fully aware of my love of the Time Lord.
No, but this needs to get to Rob Williams here. Like somehow there needs to be a Chris Forsberg highlight reel of the infatuation of Robert Williams. And he needs to watch this, and we need to have a camera on him while he's watching.
Right. So I think, so I'm hopeful that what's weird is like, obviously this past year, we haven't seen any of these guys from being in the studio and talking sometimes via Zoom or whatever. But I'm hopeful like to have more human conversations. I will fully express to Rob that I went to bat for him for a long time. There's me and Mannix had like one drag out affair right before the pandemic where I was like adamant that he was going to be something and he dismissed it. Said I was like crazy. So I am taking a little bit of a victory lap with everybody. It's not just Mannix, it's everybody was telling me that, even when I said in early August, I was like, I think Time Lord is getting extended. People were like, you're crazy. And I was like, am I? So I will take it. I will take the small victory lap. I do want to tell you one funny story. So I'm on vacation down in South Carolina. Brad Stevens decides to ruin my entire vacation by signing 74 extensions while I'm down there. And but me and this some family friends that are down there from up here in my hometown of Auburn. We're at this. It's a lake with inflatables on it, and you jump off the top of these inflatables or do the little like obstacle course, and we're having a great time. But the Rob extension goes down right before we hit this. So literally, I take my phone, I take my sunglasses, I take everything off of me, and I throw it in a backpack so that I don't like lose it in the water. And I jump out there, and I get up on the top of one of these inflatables, and my watch buzzes. And I go, oh man, I forgot to take my watch off. But it's all my friends are texting me about the Rob extension. I got work texting me saying, hey, can you do early edition tonight? So I'm using my watch. I'm just like voice texting everything. And then I get up on the top of this, like probably you're up, I don't know, 25 feet. It's pretty high. I hit this cool 720 spin in front of my kids, and I hit the water and I feel my watch pop off.
Oh,
and it sinks to the bottom of the lake. And so I lost. So Rob Williams, I just want you to know, when you do find out about my, deep joy about your contract extension, you owe me an Apple Watch because you got $48 million. You can afford it. But I had to go to Walmart.
Are those things, are they waterproof?
They are.
Like if you had found it, like, did you go diving?
So here's the funny part. I go and ask the little lifeguard on duty. I say, hey, how deep is it right there? He says it's about 15 feet. I said, well, look, my watch popped off. Like, can I throw on a mask? Can I go do something? He's like, no, it's like, you won't see anything under the water. There's a lot of sand that pops up and all that, and all the people diving. I said, okay. I said, what do I do in this situation? He goes, write down your name and number inside. We have a police team diver that comes out and scours the entire area for objects. He says, there's a chance that if he finds it and powers it back up, they'll give you a call. And it's been about a week now and I haven't heard anything. So I'm not optimistic. I had to go buy a new one because as a reporter, you need the buzz to come directly to your wrist. But
I don't have one, Chris. I do
really?
not have an Apple Watch.
Wow. So it was funny because I'm diving way too deep, literally diving way too deep here. But so I don't have a watch. So normally I just stash my phone somewhere in the house or wherever. And, I get the buzz. So I know if something's going down, whether it's family related, whether it's Celtics related, whatever. But without the watch now for the 48 hours I navigated, I didn't hear anything. And they signed Josh Richardson to an extension. I totally missed it. I had no idea. What was going on. Like I wasn't checking my phone. I deleted Twitter. Like I just got away from it all. So it's like a day and a half later and someone said, what did you think about Richardson? I was like, what? So yeah, that's a good segue to Josh Richardson. Of all the moves the Celtics made this offseason, I think that was maybe the one that surprised me. I guess let me loop back quick before we get to Josh. I saw you and Bob talked about Marcus Smart on your podcast over on the CLNS network. What was your big takeaway from Marcus getting his money?
I don't know if he's still going to be like the future of this organization. It's a very tradable contract. So I think you had to do it with the intent of still seeing really, I want to see what Marcus Smart can do now. And it's funny. I would like to say without anybody looking over his shoulder, but now Dennis Schröder is looking over his shoulder. So Marcus
he's
Smart,
not long-term.
Agree.
Not work,
Listen,
right.
Agree. We can get to Dennis Schröder because, I'm not as high on Dennis Schröder as a lot of people are. But here's the thing. At least Marcus Smart goes into training camp now knowing it's his job. And he's never had that before. So you are the starting point guard and you've got a different coaching staff that again is hopefully going to reel him back from shooting all those insane three-pointers that drive me crazy. I think a lot of these gray hairs are probably due to Marcus Smart. But again, like I like it. I don't love it. I gotta say I don't love it. I mean, I love the thought of having a third superstar.
Sure.
With Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's what I love. And I don't know, a lot of people are giving like Brad Stevens these grades right now. Like, how did he do? And how did he do? Well, right now, I don't think you can give him better than a C today on what he's done. Well, how can you? The team is worse.
Right.
The team is worse. Now, we'll give him an A if he lands Bradley Beal. I'll give him I'll redact it, retract it and give him an A for this year. But ultimately, until that happens, how could you give him anything better than a C? Yes, I know he's cleared space. I know he got rid of Kemba, but he took on Al's contract. That's not great. Yes, I understand, not all of it's guaranteed. He can move him next year, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is this team that barely got into the playoffs, really, got in the playing game a year ago. How can you make a case that it's better than it was a year ago? With Evan Fournier at the end of the year and Kemba, whatever you want to say about Kemba, I still think he's a better point guard than Marcus Smart offensively. Defensively, he was a mess.
Right.
We know that. But if Kemba's healthy, and that was obviously the big factor here, he wasn't healthy when it mattered most. So I think that ultimately led Brad Stevens to say, listen, if he can't play in the playoffs for us, like we can't count on him. I got to do something here. And I understand all the clearing, space for bringing in. And again, if they get Bradley Beal next year, I'll give Brad Stevens A, double plus, triple plus, whatever the hell he wants. But as of right now, I'm giving him a C.
Well, first off, he gets an A+ because he re-signed Rob Williams. So like it's moot point from the other moves that are out there. But I do agree. Like it's hard to judge on the surface because I don't know if the Celtics got better. I think they are a better fit. I think they will be a top 5 defense based on their the personnel that they've brought in and assembled this year. I think they might be 16th ranked offense. And, you alluded to that earlier. I don't know who besides Jason and Jalen, unless they're scoring 65 plus points a night. I'm a little leery that the Celtics are going to win anything other than 92-87. That is a concern. But I do think what Brad did that deserves credit is he set up multiple tracks here where they can figure out what's ahead. And so do I know if Marcus Smart is going to be the point guard of the future? No idea. I think he fits well. I think he accentuated Jaylen Brown, particularly last year. I think he has played well with the Jays, but he's also had moments where he hasn't. And so it comes down to, as you said, does Marcus buy into, I'm the starter now, I have my money, I'm going to put a focus on defense and playmaking and let that be my calling cards right now. If he does that, could be a home run of a deal.
Yeah.
If he still wants those threes, there's got to be a balance there. So I am interested with that. I don't worry too much about the Schröder factor because, he might bite into Marcus's minutes a little bit or the minutes of Peyton Pritchard. But even if the Celtics aren't competitive, I think there's a chance to trade Dennis Schröder further down in the year and recoup assets. And that only makes the offseason look a little bit better. But yeah, I think overall, I think Brad has set this team up. And now a lot of people said, when I wrote the article in early August saying they're going to extend Marcus and Rob, a lot of people were like, well, why? All we've been fed for the last month is flexibility. They haven't hampered that too much. You were still always going to have to get off Al Horford's final year of his contract. You might have to move Marcus now, but I think we both agree if he plays anywhere near what he's shown in the past, it's still a tradable contract. Even Rob and all that, there are younger assets that you can package together. 100%. And there's multiple combinations now.
His trade value is only going to go up, Chris.
Right.
Like Robert Williams, unless he can't play, unless he continues to get hurt, but as long as he's on the court, Robert Williams' trade value is only going to go up from what it is right now. To be honest, Marcus Smart's trade value probably only going to go up from what it was a year ago when people were saying like, well, he's not really defending the way he used to. And now he's going to have, 35 minutes a night of being the guy. So like you said, you hope he doesn't feel like he has to jack all these bad shots now because it's your team and you don't have to force anything. But unfortunately, I think it's kind of ingrained in him. I do. I think it's just ingrained in him, and that's the way he plays. And honestly, it's up to the coaching staff to try to figure that out.
And the good thing for Marcus is look, they need a third scorer right now. I don't know who's scoring on this team. So maybe they do have to figure out a balance. But it's got to be understanding that he's option 3 or 4, whatever it might be, because Jason and Jalen have to get those touches. It has to be Jalen and Jason creating the shot that Marcus Smart takes by drawing that attention. And if they do that, I think he can settle in there. I think the one thing I've come away with, and it's become my sort of, flexibility was the buzzword. I think the one place this team got better is what I keep calling security, because think back to 2018-19. Terry Rozier wants his payday. Kyrie's daydreaming about going home. Marcus Morris wants shots. Jaylen Brown stuck in the corner and being like, what the hell? Yeah. That team had so much talent. Yeah. I think someone added it up. They're making $238 million each of those, all those players combined from that group for this year. You could never afford it on a roster. The Celtics could because none of those guys had hit their paydays yet. But it didn't work because everybody wanted more. This year, the Celtics might not be as talented, but there is talent. But you got Jalen and Jason locked up long-term and already established as all-stars now. They shouldn't be worried about their status. You can worry about, am I a top 10, top 25, all that, but everybody does that. Marcus Smart is locked in. Josh Richardson now has some semblance of security at that spot. Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard, all these rookies still have reason to prove themselves, but they know their time is further down the road. So can the wiping out, hopefully fingers crossed, a little bit of the COVID impact, if they're healthier with their just minds focused on basketball, can this team be better than what we saw a year ago? Or am I just trying to talk myself into the fact that last year was some sort of outlier?
No, they can be better because they were a train wreck last year. Yeah. The chemistry wasn't great. The injuries, the games missed wasn't good. So yes, they can be better. The chemistry needs to be great between Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I've been saying this. I've been preaching this for a year now. They have to figure it out and look like they're, having fun together and make life easier for each other and for everybody else. We know they can score. The big question now is all right, Jason, consistently, can you make life easier for your teammates? And they got to make shots too. There are plenty of times when Jason Tatum is dishing the ball and guys aren't making shots. And eventually, at some point, it's in you where like, well, if I keep passing it and they're missing it, I might as well take a contested, shot here because our chances are better.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately the biggest thing is going to be, are Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown comfortable enough now in their own skin in the NBA to say, like, I don't got to put up 30 every night now. I can put up 18 and 8 and 7. But if Romeo Langford goes for 15 tonight, that gives us a better chance to win, not just now, but later on in the season, because they saw what it's like when defenses just load up against those two guys. I remember talking to multiple players last season and coaches, and they said, like, this team is so easy to prepare for before Kemba came back.
Right.
It's two guys. We load up on them. Not that hard. So they got to make sure that's not the case this year.
I love it. And I think that, like, that's what I go back to. Like, that's the last step for the Jays, is figuring out, one, they have to be better playmakers in general, but just how do they make people around them better? Because, like, that's what superstars do. Right. And you look at the assist totals. I think, we always default to probably Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but I think they're up at like 13 assists between them per game. And like Jason and Jaylen got to be up there. They can't be at 5-6 assists, like, between the two of them. They have the ball in their hands too much, and they're too talented, and they draw too much attention not to create for others. So very simple to me. I just want to see them take that up another level. And just
does the ball move enough, Chris?
Right. Oh my gosh.
Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. The one thing we said last year, like, all right, like, they're not ball movers by nature. That's not what they generally do. They've got to become that. They've got to think that way to be able to move the ball quickly to get guys easy shots. And again, there's no natural point guard on this roster. That doesn't mean you can't win. There are plenty of teams without a natural point guard these days. Mm-hmm. But again, you've got to move the ball. And I am worried, like, even the second unit, I can tell you're just waiting to unload on me on Schröder. I want to hear this. Listen, the big thing with Schröder for me, and I said this, I actually said this on NBC Boston the night the trade happened, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, by the way. I needed a day off. So
yeah, I gave you the day off. You were still trying to find your watch or something. So I reached out to a bunch of players, guys who we played with, coaches, executives in the league. The word that I heard the most was selfish. That was the word that I kept hearing. Now, again,
is that based off of last year? Because last year, in general.
Based off his career. Ooh. Based off his career. This wasn't just people who played with him last year. This was over the course of his career. I wanted to get kind of a bigger sample size of kind of what people thought of him, because I was curious. Like, I've never really kind of dived into him. I remember talking to him at the NBA Combine, and seemed like a good kid, but was really to himself, even at the Combine, when a lot of guys were hanging out. But, he came over, obviously not from college, so he didn't know any other guys. So I kind of chalked it up to that. But yeah, the big thing that Schröder's got to do here, to show that he's a good teammate. I think that's the biggest thing for this team, because otherwise, if he's not going to be a good teammate, like, you cut him loose.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he's going to be taking minutes, like you said, from Peyton Pritchard. And I think Peyton Pritchard's a good backup point guard in the league. I do. I think he'll be a good, solid backup point guard. He can make shots, which is what this team is going to need, and Schröder's not a great shooter.
Right.
So you're adding another guy who honestly doesn't really fit today's NBA game all that well. He's got speed. He can guard when he wants to, but he's not a great shooter. And this team, I think, needs again, we don't know. I'd like to say this team needs as many shooters. Under Brad Stevens, they need as many shooters as they can. Right. Now, we don't know how Ime gonna run this team and the offense and everything.
You always need shooting. Like, I'm the same deal. Like, I look at this roster and I say, all right, Josh Richardson, Schröder, like, all these guys are great additions, but who's hitting threes?
Who's shooting the ball?
Yeah.
Who's shooting the ball? That's where Peyton Pritchard probably going to get in the floor, because he can shoot the basketball. Aaron Nesmith. See, I would use this season, and maybe I'm crazy here. I don't think you're playing for anything major this season. I think you're playing for, like, best case scenario, you're in the 4-5 game, and then you get knocked out by whoever the 1 seed is, whether it's Giannis, whether it's Brooklyn, whatever. I would force feed Aaron Nesmith. I would play him 30 minutes every game. I would. I'm so in the let's see what Aaron Nesmith is, and honestly, kind of in the I'm done with Romeo Langford.
Oof.
Yeah,
Check it out.
I know, and I love Romeo as a kid. I do, but I just think Aaron Nesmith is a proven shooter, And Romeo, talk about somebody again that can't be trusted because he's always hurt. It's one thing after the other, and it's been going on longer than Robert Williams. It's been going on back to when he was in Indiana.
So a lot to unpack there. I'm kind of with you on Schröder. Like my biggest hesitation with the move, and like if they had given him the big mid level, I probably really would have lost my mind. To sacrifice flexibility for a player who doesn't have a long-term future would have been criminal. To get him at that 5.7, like that is a steal. That is another great move. That if it pans out, like you stumbled into a great situation. But yeah, like I'm worried about, is he going to sit there and say like he's playing because he turned down $20 million and now he needs to get back to that level? So they need to find the balance there, and they need to get him to buy into, if he's 6-man Oklahoma City Dennis Schröder, like then maybe there's a chance for him to succeed. And he's still going to get his value back if the team succeeds, but that's a tough sell when a player is probably only focused on what's next. Now, he should also know that the most likely scenario is if he plays well but the team doesn't, like he's going to get dealt, and the Celtics will get a pick for him and recoup value that way, and he'll go have a chance to compete for a title and get even more in the spotlight. So I hope he buys into it. I think it's interesting what you said about Peyton Pritchard. I'm not as high on Peyton Pritchard's ability to be like the backup point guard, as like, Scal said it throughout the summer. Like all you need is Marcus Martin and Peyton Pritchard. I think you need another guy, but I can't deny, like the guy
can't have enough. Here's what you can't have enough. You can't have enough good point guards in your roster.
Right.
That's what I'll say at every level of basketball. You can't have enough solid point guards on the roster. You don't have a great one. You got 3 guys that are all completely different. If you put them together, you'd have one hell of a point guard, maybe the best point guard in the damn NBA. If you took facets of their game. But the other thing you got to prepare for this year is we're still in COVID times. Like we don't know what's going to happen. So again, Marcus Smart gets hurt, something happens. Schröder, you just don't know. So I'm fine with the 3 point guards, but I'm fine with it until it gets to a point where one of these guys is playing. Schröder plays 5 minutes one game and pops off, or Marcus Smart's getting less time than his contract would say he should get, or Peyton Pritchard's frustrated. Now he's young. Peyton will be the easiest one to manage by far. We know that from a personality and ego standpoint. But if all 3 are healthy, last I checked, there's only 48 minutes.
Yeah, and not a lot of minutes, especially when you're playing a whole bunch of wings and you got to get, like you said, Nesmith some time. And then don't forget, Chris Dunn's still on this roster. I don't know if he'll be here on opening night, but they've got essentially
can't imagine. 4. Chris, I cannot.
Right?
I don't see any scenario where Chris Dunn, and I feel bad saying it because again, Chris. Yeah, I remember spending a day with him at Providence College, and I also remember the draft day.
Oh my gosh, Celtics fans just clamoring for Chris Dunn.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown and Chris Dunn. I might have been one of the ones clamoring for Chris Dunn. I don't even remember, but I think I wasn't sure that draft. It's funny, that pick. A lot of people were like, I don't know who you take, Buddy Hield, Chris Dunn, Jaylen Brown. Like nobody knew who to take. And listen. A lot of people are critical of Danny Ainge, and he's made some bad moves, but that was one hell of a draft.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I was thinking about it last night. If they do start Aaron Nesmith, which I don't think they will, we'll get into like who we think the 5th starter will be. That would be all homegrown guys, like guys they drafted. That would be their entire starting 5. And like I think that's just, I don't know if you can go around the league besides maybe Oklahoma City, and even then they traded for Shea. So like there's not a lot of teams out there that can say they organically grew a contending caliber starting 5. Now the Celtics have some strides to get back to that contending part, but and then your first guys off your bench are probably Peyton and potentially Romeo. Now Al Horford doesn't, Al Horford's in that mix. There was not a homegrown guy, but kudos to Danny Ainge as he rides off into the sunset. Like I think he had to sit there, watch Summer League and think, all right, I think I can take a little bit of a victory lap here as even Romeo was hitting threes, and maybe that's a good sign for his development. Who would you, if you're Ime Udoka, and so we know Smart, Rob, Jason, Jaylen, who's your 5th guy?
Nesmith.
Ooh,
it really is. I just think that gives you the highest upside. I think otherwise, what do you want to do? I mean, you got to space the court there too.
Yeah.
Like who else? Seriously, who else are you gonna?
And I don't know. Like I say, Josh Richardson, but I don't think the fit's great. Like
Well
you'd be
enough.
awesome defensively,
Right.
but is he making shots? And Brad sounds pretty bullish that the last 2 years are a bit of an outlier, but I don't know. 2 years is 2 years, and so do I think he's going to be anything more than a 35% 3-point shooter? They keep saying, and I got to look up the number because they keep saying like he hits a lot of open threes, which is great. Like a lot of guys should hit open threes and don't. But and he's going to get a lot of open threes if he plays with the Jays. But I am a little bit leery about him in that spot. I think he'd be great for the bench in terms of being able to create off the dribble and all that Josh Richardson does well. And then, pick spots for his defense. Maybe he's in the closing lineup, but I don't know. It depends on who's making shots and how that all plays out. I don't have a good answer. That's why I keep going back to Neesmith, because if he shoots 40% from threes, it makes all the sense in the world.
Put him in the corner, Chris. Put him in the damn corner, and all he's got to do is make threes. And eventually, they're going to have to guard him out there, press up on him, and that opens up some space because Josh Richardson is never going to open up space. I don't care how many threes he hits. He's never going to open up space for Tatum and Jaylen Brown, where if Neesmith is making them at a 40% clip, which he's fully capable of doing, then again, it gives you a weapon, and that they don't have anybody else in the team that can do that. So I would ride with him. I'd ride with him. I know, listen, he's going to have some defensive mistakes. I don't think for a lack of effort, just from a lack of knowledge and repetitions. But I think he'll be better on that end too. He'll continue to get better. And again, like more athletic than we thought. I don't know. I mean, again, I just feel like, I don't know if Udoka will do it. I assume it'll just be based on how good Neesmith is in training camp, and that's probably what it should be at that point. Evaluate him that way and say, like, this gives us the best chance to win. We're not playing for today. We're not. We're playing for down the road, and we've got to accelerate this kid's growth. And the other part of it, Chris, what it does, it might accelerate his trade value. And you might be able 100%. To deal a guy like Aaron Neesmith. Because right now, what are you getting? Like, you're getting nothing for Romeo Langford in the deal. Zero. Like, worth zero. Like, any of those guys on the second unit right now are worth this in trades. Zero. Aaron Neesmith, you could build him up to whereas maybe if he does shoot 40% from three, you could put him in a deal for a star, and he's a carrot, right? With a first round pick and maybe Marcus Smart, and you can get a guy.
They need carrots. Like, I think that's the one thing that we all agree. Without the treasure chest of draft picks, they need not only development from young guys to supplement the cost of the core right now, but they need guys they can put in trades. Just like you said, like, how are you getting Bradley Beal if you don't have somebody to entice? Like, yeah, it's great to fantasize about throwing Al Horford's partly guaranteed money in there, but all the picks in the world aren't enough for Washington.
Tommy Shepard is not looking at that partially guaranteed contract in Washington and said, I got to have that. Right?
No one loves cap space. Like, cap space is great and flexibility is great, but no one sits there and says, "Ooh, only having to pay Al Horford $14.5 million next year is a good situation." So there's work to do. They've got to tinker there, and they've got to develop those guys. I'm bullish on Neesmith. I'm if you rewind the tape, I definitely wanted Sadiq Bey more, but I think they're similar players. And like, look, Neesmith surprised me with his ability to sort of have that breakneck attacking of the defensive glass, and he's got to harness that a little bit more. But I'd rather try to ramp a guy down than try to ramp a guy up. And that's the Romeo Langford situation where, Romeo has started to take a little bit of offense to the fact that we complain about his motor, but I think you need that when you're that young, and you need to sort of establish yourself. You can't just look like you're going through the motions out there. And I'm hopeful his summer league is a little sign of what's possible. The game 4 of the Nets series or whatever, he came in and defended well. There's the potential is obviously there. It's just a matter of, will he get enough time and ability to sort of grow before they reach the end of this rookie contract.
He's got now. He's got a clean slate with a new coach. And that's the benefit of all those guys in the second unit now, is like, they'll have a clean slate. That'll be good, but I don't know how much that changes things.
Let's end on this. Is Brad done? Is Brad going to go on vacation anytime soon?
Yeah, I would think he is now.
See, I
right?
don't
I would
know.
think,
I'm not convinced.
no, you don't think he's with the family every day now, like you're doing, jumping off, in a lake somewhere.
Yeah, so he does go to like what is it? I think Northern Indiana gets away. But I don't know. I think he's got to start thinking about he's sort of hinted, okay, now as the dust starts to settle, he can start looking at the front office and does he want to add
Right.
somebody there? And there's always been whispers about Landry Fields and all this, and he sort of shot
Love
that down.
Landry. Love
Uh,
Landry. I
and
would
and
love to
I,
see him bring in Landry Fields.
I do think they will seek to add some voices, eventually. I think they're content. I mean, they've got a great staff. I think it was huge for Brad to have that luxury where even without a first round pick, Austin, Mike, and just yeah, like not only that, but they just did their jobs. Like Dave Lewin could still keep scouting, doing his thing. Like everybody was doing what they did. And that probably made it a little less stressful as Brad started to dive in here. But I do think he loves voices, he loves big staffs. Like every time I show up at the Auerbach Center, there seemed to be a new player development, player enhancement person, and like I'm bad with names, and I'm like trying to learn everybody. It's so I do think there'll be just more sounding boards, and I think Allison Feaster is just a star in this organization about like what not only in her role as player development and organizational growth, but what she thinks about where this team is going and the players that should be here and the internal and external. So I just think
I got one for you. I got one question for you before we wrap.
Oh, okay.
Because everybody's asking me this. And
all right.
The over under on the number of years that Brad Stevens is in his current role.
Ooh. So when he started, I said it's like I probably would have said 1, and I think he would have had the itch to go back to coaching if things went sideways. But I don't know. He did pretty good this year. Like again, we can't assign a definitive grade, but for someone who got thrown into that role, I didn't know how well he would do with just being able to make bold decisions based on players you have relationships with. And I think Kemba's a great example. I think it was a little bit telling that the first move he made was saying, like, Kemba, love you as a human, but like our team can't go forward with you with your injuries, with your fit with the Jays. And that's a tough move to make. So I'll put it at, whatever I say, if I say like it's going to be short, he'll be here for like 60 years, even though he said he's not going to be a lifer in this thing. Let's give Brad, I'll say 5 years from now, he sort of steps back. Like, how old's Brady?
Brady's got to be, is he like 14?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think like what, maybe when
he's like, is he a freshman in high school or something like that?
So maybe freshman or sophomore, and Kinsley's 3 years younger. So I don't know. I think about my own situation and like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm probably here for life. I'm still in the same hometown I grew up in, but like life decisions probably get a little bit easier as your kids get out of school. Like if Brad did want to jump back into coaching, maybe that happens after his kids get through school. So I don't know. I think he'll be here. What did he coach for? 8 years, 7 years? Like I think he'll do this for 7 years and then he'll figure out what's next.
I go under. I agree with you on all of the family stuff. That's going to be the hardest part for him, because you're right. I mean, kids are now, it's getting to a point where it's hard. Like when we moved, my daughter was and we just moved from Framingham to Newburyport. My daughter was in 3rd grade. She didn't have these like lifelong close friends. His kids are older, obviously, but I think he's going to have that itch to coach again. I really do. I think he's going to have it. I give it a year or two.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're ending.
I just think big boys are going to come after him too.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be in demand because I think his reputation is still so strong in the league from executives that I do feel like there'll be people coming at him. I mean, look, he's not going back to college. First of all, he's not going back.
Eventually, you don't think like they won't, the end of the road, Brad won't go back to college?
Well, I've said that over and over. I still say like 60-year-old Brad is going to go to Butler to finish out his career.
It'll be awesome.
Butler's going to need a coach. They're going to call Brad thinking he's going to say no. And Brad's gonna be like, yeah, what the hell? I'm gonna help Butler. I love Butler. Like, why not? Right. And he'll coach for like 2 years and get him back, in a good spot. But I just think another NBA. I mean, it was crazy. Every college opening wanted him last year. And all the elite level schools were open. Right. I mean, Carolina, he could have walked to Carolina if he wanted. And think about that from years ago from Butler Brad. he turned down Indiana. He turned down North Carolina. Like, those are the best jobs in college. So I don't think I don't want to say ever, but I don't see him going back to college. I see him getting another NBA head coaching job when he has the itch. And, he's done this for a couple of years and probably realized that maybe he can hand it off to Austin at that point. That would be the ultimate, deal for Danny and for Brad, for him to hand it off to Austin, at that point. My
dog is not on board with that plan, evidently.
Or not like the Austin hire.
No. So here's the thing, and what's ironic is, so my dog, and I think I've explained this on the podcast before. My dog's name is Kemba, because we got him during the pandemic, and he had a green collar. And my kids were adamant they had to pick a name that was like Celtics related, even though it gave me great angst to have like any affiliation with the team I cover. Yeah. And so I came up with, we should call him Marcus Smart. And that got shot down. And now Marcus Smart is extended for 4 more years. And I said, at least the dog would have got through half his life before we had to worry about whether his name is outdated. So, but he enjoys Kemba. I think he's a Brad fan. I think he understands tough decisions. We gave the dog the option of changing his name. He said no, he would like to remain Kemba. So yeah,
that'd be tough for him. How old is the dog now?
Just a year, like a year and a couple of days.
Still a year to change the name. Yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah. So Marcus Smart is still out there for anybody who's looking for a great Celtics related
name.
I mean, and he barks a ton, so it fits right in there. All right. I you know what? It's funny. I told you before we did this, I said we're half an hour now because there's not a lot going on in the Celtics world.
No, not at all.
I could have gone for another half hour. I've got more questions, but I need to wrap this up. We'll just keep doing Celtics Talk podcast until Brad takes a vacation. So everybody, while we're waiting for Brad to go find a bouncy house and lose his Apple Watch, I need everybody to go like, subscribe, check us out on our YouTube page. Go check out Jeff's podcast with Bob Ryan as well, and all that Jeff does over at Stadium and all that. So everybody, we'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.